On the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's mine. Good evening. Welcome to our June 15, 2017 budget hearing. We call the meeting to order, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join in. Stand and join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We did not have a prayer on our agenda, but I would like to have just maybe a minute of silence to think about some of the things that have happened. The horrific shooting while one of our elected representatives was just trying to play some baseball, and also think about what happened in London. So we'll just take a minute of silence. Okay. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and start our agenda. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Hunziker for an introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. In your binders, you don't have to go to them, there is a tab that has an agenda for tonight. I was going to make some opening remarks. Thank you for that. And then Jan's going to walk the public through a quick PowerPoint presentation. Then you can hear from the public, and then a board discussion can follow that. As a preamble to all of this, this workshop is not one of the statutorily required public hearings. Those take place in September. But we thought while you were in the early stages of the budget review, which you have been going through dutifully this week and have been dealing with since the first of the month, that early on we would allow the public to come in and share any comments they have about your budget. We published that budget, I think, on May 30th, and it's been out there for the public to review, and any comments they might have early on in the budget process, they could come to this meeting and share with you. We'll be moving from tonight to the July stage, and any additional workshops we might have at the end of July leading up to the August 1st date, where the board would be required to establish the tentative tax rate, that which you cannot exceed when you adopt the final budget in September. The board could schedule additional workshops in the month of August if you so choose on any portion of the budget, including the capital improvement program. And then leading up to the two required public hearings in September for the final adoption of the budget. But people that show up at that point in time, we'd be at the end of the process, and this allows them early on in the early stages of the budget to come share with you any thoughts they might have. So unless there's any questions by board members, I'm going to ask Jan to go over a PowerPoint presentation that we shared with you when I delivered the budget, and then we can hear from the public. Thank you.
Okay.
Jan?
Good evening, Commissioners. The budget we're about to go through in front of you is a $1.351 billion budget. We went through an exercise that we took you through in May, and I'd like you to walk you through it again. The overall total budget includes several items that are redundant as far as governmental accounting. So we're peeling that back, we call it peeling the onion, to better show you what is the true tax funds and then the general fund. By pulling out internal service funds, transfers, reserves, you get to the net budget of $615 million. After that, you have the enterprise funds at $158, the special revenue, debt service, capital projects of $115 million, and that gets you down to the basic four tax funds of the general fund, transportation, library, and unincorporated. But peeling it even further down, where you find the most general services are within the general fund of $274 million. As you can see, the taxable values starting back at 2007 were at $35 billion. You can see the slight downward, the great downward slope that occurred hitting and peaking in 2012, and then slowly going back up. In 2016, you had a $30 billion budget, $30 billion taxable value. 2017, we've estimated a 9% increase in taxable values, bringing it to 33.3 million. Again, you will be certified on July 1st and receive that from the property appraiser as to the actual amount. Since 2008, the millage rates have remained very steady, starting at 6.997, and in the recommended budget before you, they are staying at 7.0435 mils. That has been consistent since 2012. Your overall budget, again, the net budget, is $615 million. Property taxes at 9% account for $218 million of the revenues that you bring in. Other taxes, such as communication services tax, brings in around $62 million. Charges for services at $217 million involve your ambulance services, your utility rates. Those are all service charges that they have. License permits and fees are at $64 million, and intergovernmental intergovernmental grants such as state, federal, and local are at $54 million. The increase in the revenues from the prior year adopted is at $47 million, and I need to point out that within this budget is an infrastructure sales tax of $25.1 million, which increased the budget. Your increase in expenditures, also a change of $47 million, and if I may, I'd like to walk you around the circle. Starting at physical environment. Physical environment's $154 million. Physical environment contains not only environmental conservation efforts, it also includes your utility system, that's why it's so large, and your landfill. That's why that is $154, and such a large piece of your overall budget. Public transportation is at $37 million. Human services, which belong a lot of it to neighborhood services, $26 million. Notice your capital outlay is at $78 million. That substantially increased from the prior year, and I'll mention that in a minute, due to the infrastructure sales tax. You have other governmental small type economic environment, but then general government, which are your general services, are $83 million. And a large piece that you have placed as priority, as always, has been public safety, and that's at $173 million. So out of the $47 million increase this year, 60% of it has gone to capital outlay, 25% of it to public safety. And then you can see the remaining further expenditures of physical environment, transportation, and general government. I want to take 1 second to walk you through the plan in the next year. With the additional exemption that's coming through in FY20, it will be a substantial change to government. We have several options of which way that the government can handle it, but as you see here, if we grow by 9 and then 8% and then by 5%, the problem that will happen, we will become accustomed to spending at the rate that came in, and then our revenues will drop approximately $8.6 million in FY20. What's been proposed in this budget is to spend a large portion of the increase that we have, but to contain a set-aside amount that is the other. Each year, we will take, in the next 2 years, take that set-aside and put it to the side. In the FY18 budget, it'll be $2.8 million. In FY19, again, you can see the pattern. We will set aside again 2.8 and 2.8. Now, I wanted to remind you that's all of the tax funds. We've been talking a lot about 2.3, which is only the general fund. That's the largest piece, but overall it's 2.8. So that the 2.8 would be able to be spent in FY18 and 19 on one-time items. And then by the time FY20 occurs, Jamie, if you'll hit it one more time, you can see we'll fall in line exactly with where we will have estimated revenues coming in. The summary of the set-aside, just as I mentioned, is here. The impact in FY20 is in that first column. It will total $8.2 million, almost 8.3, with the largest piece being in the general fund. The set-aside in FY18, again, totaling $2.8 million, with 2.3 being in the general fund. Again, following through, just to restate, in FY19, you'll see the 4.6 for the general fund, 5.6 overall. We walked you through at the budget message the changes that occurred in FY18 for the general fund and how we incorporated the $16.8 million increase that came from the taxes. The remainder of what the process for your budget, although we can do any work sessions you want to in August, what we have on the budget right now is an August 1st reconciliation and adoption of the tentative millage. Again, you'll be adopting that for the August 4th submission to the state of Florida with the trim and compliance with trim. We have set 2 public hearings for you in September, the 18th and September 25th, one at 6 and one at 6:30. And that concludes the presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open this public hearing up for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? I think we have one gentleman signed up. I don't have his.
She's coming.
Thank you. We actually have 2 people signed up. Greg Watson is signed up first. Mr. Watson, if you'd like to come forward, just state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Greg Watson, and I'd like to just say I'm new to Manatee County, but not new to Florida. I've only been here about 2 years now, and this is actually my first meeting here, so I don't know exactly what's going on yet, but I was hoping you could enlighten me. So the first question I had today was about the drones that were in the budget for $35,000. I don't know if that was still in or not, but I was just looking at that to see if that was a realistic number. I looked at a couple of drones online, and they run about $4,200 plus extra batteries and storage and pilot training and everything else. I'm wondering if that amount of money is really going to be enough to get started on your drone program, and also if it's going to be used for inspection of property buildings, is that not something that could be inspected by local tradespeople that are already available and usually do bids and quotes for free? So that was question number 1. Then the second question is about the property tax values. I was wondering if the values are taking into account both the increase in values of existing homes and also the new construction homes, of which, you know, luckily we're doing quite well on now. I haven't seen where that shows up as a separate line item. So those are my two questions.
Okay, thank you. Our procedure is we take all public comment and then we respond to the questions. So
Okay,
thank you for
great.
being here.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
And
well,
thank you for your
welcome to the
time last
county.
night, too.
Okay, great.
Oh, you were there, huh?
Going up. Okay, Catherine?
Good evening, Catherine Edwards. I was looking for Glenn Gibolina. I figured he was going to talk tonight. He was on the sign-up sheet. Did I say Catherine Edwards? I'd like to comment about CIP. I had to leave in the middle of that meeting. I apologize for that. But I saw some things that I was kind of concerned about. Just looking at the first 5 years of the program, it looks like there are an awful lot of $600 toilet seats in there. There's $105,000, it looks like it's $105,000 per lifeguard stand. And I must not understand what the lifeguard stand is composed of, but I'll find out. But, you know, I think you could put Hellfire missiles in a lifeguard stand to kill the sharks for that price. There's $250,000 driveway for the SWAT team. Does that make it IED proof? $250,000 for a driveway, again, I don't know how long it is or how wide it is, but it just seems like an awful lot of money. And furthermore, as was expressed by some of the commissioners at the CIP review, 66% of the projects funded in the general government section for the first 5 years are Manatee County Sheriff's Office stuff, including their $250,000 SWAT team driveway. It would be nice to see the commissioners insist that maybe a little bit more of the first 5 years of the capital improvement programs that are already funded, I know, address things that are directly apparent to the taxpayers instead of infrastructure that the taxpayers themselves never really see. An increase in population, everybody cited in their budgets that they needed more personnel. Well, and they usually cite because, well, they have more calls, they got more people here. But an increase in population doesn't mean that the staff for the county increases linearly as well. It's called efficiencies of scale. Every businessman is familiar with it. It's why so many companies merge. And there are a lot of mergers that could take place here. With respect to IT, last thing, I'm very concerned about the fact that they have a need for technology and they're perceiving it as a need for personnel. And that seems to be true throughout the offices and the departments. And I think maybe it can just be addressed by one or the other, but not both. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the board at this public hearing? All right, seeing no one come forward, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment? We don't have to keep this one open, right? We advertise another one, so,
No, this is it.
okay. I'm going to close public comment, so. Mr. County Administrator?
As it relates to the questions posed, the drones are a pilot program in the Property Management Department to enter into a contract to use that service to survey all of the properties that the county owns. And we will be testing that out over the years, but right now we have to send survey crews out, and it would just be a lot easier, a lot quicker, and a lot less expensive if we could use drones to survey all the properties that the Board of County Commissioners own. And then we take that data and possibly, as you saw from our millennials earlier today, we can use that and digitize it and make all of that information available, not only to the board, but to the public. The question of the value of property, we have estimated at this point in time a overall 9% growth in countywide property values. On July 1st, the property appraiser will provide the Board of County Commissioners with the final numbers. And in that effort, the details about how much is from commercial properties versus residential, and in the residential category from existing homeowners to new homes, all of that will be broken out by the property appraiser. Right now, we're just looking at trend lines from prior years and then looking at what we think is our best guess of what he's going to say. So we have no detail at this point as to the breakdown, but come July 1st, when that information is available, we will publish it for the world to see. As it relates to the CIP and the lifeguard stands, I can't answer the question as to how much each lifeguard stand will cost. Some of those are replacement lifeguard stands. Some of them will be new, and we can have that information available from somebody that knows more about it than I do. But that we'll get back to you with that answer. The driveway is, I'm not so sure it's a driveway, but a driving pad for the sheriff's office and other law enforcement agencies to use in practicing driving at high rates of speeds, quick turns, quick stops, It's more than just a driveway, much more than just a driveway. And in the first 5 years, the information relative to 66% of general government is for the sheriff. Some projects take longer than others. If you have to acquire right-of-way and you have to get permitting, it will take a bit longer. We're not at all surprised that the sheriff, who already is prepared to spend, because a lot of that is repairing things that currently exist and requires very little permitting and very little, if any, right-of-way acquisition, that those projects can be done quickly. But they all fit within the overall spend for the sheriff and public safety of 15% of the proceeds. It might be 66 the first 5 years, but when we get to the end of the line, 15 years down the road, the overall sheriff's component of the sales tax, it will be 15%. It's a timing issue. It's a cash flow.
Shovel ready. He's shovel ready.
He's well, in the good term, shovel ready, ready to go. He's been waiting patiently for years. He's well beyond shovel ready.
Okay, she asked,
Thank you.
she asked a question about very expensive toilets.
I have no idea what that is. I don't think there's,
Phrase.
I think that was a comment, not a fact.
Oh, well, I took it literally. Okay, sorry. All right.
And I think that answers the questions that were posed. We'd be happy to answer any other questions the board members might have. I think you have done yeoman's work since the first of the month, going through the almost 900 pages of budget data that we have provided to you and the public, all of which is online. And we will continue to explore and answer board questions. And when you return from recess, we will have the need for more workshops as you so choose. As Jan pointed out, the next scheduled meeting is on August 1st.
Yeah, and I do just feel compelled to say, because this may be the first televised, I can't remember what all was televised and what hasn't been, but we've been in meetings, I believe, 5 days of meetings discussing our budget and going through it. Yesterday, total time was 12 hours during the day. So today, we started at 2 o'clock. And so there has been, and we had Port Authority this morning, there has been extensive discussion and analysis of all of the information that's online to the public. But there has been many, many questions, public involvement prior to this initial public hearing. I don't want anyone tuning in thinking, wow, those people don't have any questions at all. Well, we've been asking questions for 5 days.
Flag things already.
Flagged everything. There's still much to consider, but we've dug in quite a bit into what's been presented so far.
You have asked a lot of good questions, and we've had answers to most of them, but not all of them. We owe you answers, and when you return, we will have those answers available to you. I would like to take the chance before you adjourn and thank Jan and her staff for the hours and hours of work that they put into this. They started this process at the end of last year, in November, December, and the departments and agencies that have cooperated in providing all the data that you see in these 900-plus pages came from a variety of people working hard to make sure that you and the public are fully informed as to how these public dollars are being spent.
May we have a
Okay.
copy of your presentation, Jan, that you
Oh,
sent
yes, ma'am.
tonight? Will you email it to us? Thanks.
I sure will.
Okay. All right, well, then we just have a couple of announcements to make. First off, as has been mentioned, the budget reconciliation meeting will be held in the commission chambers right here on August 1st, 2017 at 9 o'clock a.m. And the second announcement is budget information and materials can be accessed on the county's website at www.mymanatee.org/budget. And so anyone who's interested in seeing all of the, bless you, all the budget items that has been discussed, it is available online. So if there is no other business, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve?